Alright, so welcome to our program in financial framework. And we had first looked at the first part of our course, which particularly looked at principles that guide the financial management, or the principles that you're supposed to follow so that you can be able to properly manage your finances as you implement your given projects. Now, we had finished our first module, and today we are starting with our second module. Now, in this module, we're going to look at cost estimations. I'm sure by now most of us are already acquainted with the term estimation. So by estimation, what we're simply talking about is we're trying to predict, okay? We're trying to predict what a certain outcome will be for a given project that you're planning to implement. So we're trying to estimate the costs or the cost outcome given a certain project that we want to implement. And that's what we'll be focusing in this chapter. Alright, so when it comes to cost estimation under project management or for your project or under the organization, there are basically two categories. There are basically two categories or approaches that you can be able to use for you to be able to estimate your given costs or your costs for your given project. So the approach or category that you pick or choose is simply dependent upon the nature of your given project. Now we shall go on into details as we go along the way. But for now, we can first look at the different categories and approaches of cost estimation. So we have got the first one, which is known as the top-down estimation, and then we've got the bottom-up cost estimation. Okay. All right. So project cost estimating can be done in different ways by different individuals depending on the nature of the project. Regardless of the nature and approach project managers wish to use, project estimate process can be categorized into two processes. So we've got the top down and then we've got the bottom up approach. So either approach being used when estimating a work breakdown structure is a very important tool. So estimation of project cost requires information on a given project. Okay, so before we can go further, I want to just take note. They have introduced a certain concept here, which is the concept of a work breakdown structure. Now, for you who just recently enrolled and wasn't part of the first stage students, I'm sure this might be new to you. But what a work breakdown structure is, it is simply just an hierarchy showing the various activities or roles that will be cardinal or will be part of our project for us to be able to implement our given project. We can give an example. Maybe you're trying to construct a house. So in this project of construction or house constructing, you'll be required to first come up with a list of all the activities that will be required and needed for you to be able to construct this given house. So there will be digging, there will be plastering, there will be electrification, there will be roofing, and there will be all those other activities. So me, I'm not into construction of houses, but those that might be into construction of houses, I'm sure you might know better the activities, but I'm just trying to give as an example. So once you list down all the activities, okay, that are involved in construction of that house, the next thing that you have to do is you have to be able to now start arranging them based on departments of your organization. Okay, so you know to say Okay, so these activities to do with making of placing of electric wires in this house should be done under the department that is in charge for electricity. When it comes to plumbing, setting up of pipes and all of that, you have to be able to allocate that to the department in your organization that is responsible for such. And then once all of that is done, then you can be able to now give roles to people that are skilled in that particular activity. So the whole process of doing that is what is known as a work breakdown structure, and it can actually be represented uh, it can be represented visually. Okay, it can be represented visually. So once you come up with a work breakdown structure now, you already know all the activities that will be involved in your given project. That way, it will be easier for you to even know the resources that will be required in the given project. It will be easier for you to calculate or estimate how much resources will be required. Then from there, you can be able to estimate the cost or the amount of money that will be required for you to be able to carry out the given activities. Okay, so just like they have said under this last point, saying estimation of project costs requires information on a given project. So the information is simply coming from this work breakdown structure. Okay, it is giving you information about the activities that are involved or be required. Then from here, it is also giving you just how much will be needed, okay, for you to be able to carry out that given project. Now, as we were saying, there are two different approaches that you can be able to use in the estimation, okay, in the estimation of costs. So the first one is known as the top-down estimate, which simply starts by looking at the top activities that are listed in your work breakdown structure, and then you begin to estimate going downwards. Okay, all right. So there are, however, occasions when cost estimates for a new project have to be made with such scarce information. In this case, the best approach to the cost estimator is to start by one, visualizing the entire project at completion. Identify one or more similar projects from recent past, research the actual cost of those past projects, and then use the information as a basis for comparative estimate for the new project. All right, so there are cases or occasions, okay, when cost estimation for a new project has to be made with scarce information. So in a situation where maybe you might have made your work breakdown structure for a given project. Unfortunately, you still have got a lot of information that is lacking. Okay, maybe let's say you don't really know the current prices of the resources that you need for you to be able to carry out the activities required to implement your given project. So there are about two things that you can be able to do. The first one is you have to start visualizing the project is already completed, and then what you need to do is you need to do a research, okay, on similar projects that have been completed already, okay, and then from there you can try to ask how much was spent, or how much money was pumped in to that project, or how much it costed that project to be completed. Then from there you can begin to make comparative estimates for your new project or the project that you want to implement. Alright, so such estimates can contain very little detail, perhaps forecasting only the total project costs and the expected contributing costs of a few principal work packages. So Usually, when you look at the project just on a completion basis or completion point, isn't it? You're just looking at, oh, okay, so this project was completed and how much was spent. Okay, so this is how much was spent. Quite okay, it is giving you the total estimate, but it is still not giving you the detailed information on how the costs were being allocated and so on and so forth. Therefore, as you make your comparisons with the project that you want to implement, if you're able to see a lot of similarities, quite okay, you'll be able to make you can be able to make close estimates of how much would be needed for your project because you have seen to say there are a lot of similarities. However, due to the fact that it does not give you detailed information on how the financial resources were being allocated, then it still leaves a room for error. All right, so the process of estimating, where the estimator starts by considering the entire project, is what is known as the top-down estimation. Because estimating at this cost level must start from consideration of the entire project, the process is known as the top-down estimation. All right, so we have just looked at the first process of estimating or cost estimation, where we draw comparisons from a similar project that was conducted to the project that we want to conduct. Okay, we look at maybe let's say the environment where it was conducted. We discover that it's similar to the environment where we want to conduct our project, and then we look at maybe the type of project or the nature of the project itself. So we might say maybe you want to build a poultry. Okay, you want to build a poultry and you want to start rearing chickens, isn't it? Maybe let's say you have bought a farm. So for you to be able to make an estimate of how much you are going to spend to build that poultry, you have to first try to do a research in the same area where you bought your farms. See the people that have built poultries and then look at the type of poultry you want to build. Is it a poultry that will hold 7,000 chickens? If it is, then look at the people in your area that have built poultries that are holding 7,000 chickens, and then try to find out how much they had to spend for them to be able to build that given poultry. And then once you know how much they spent in total, you can be able to have an idea of how much you will also be required to spend in order for you to be able to construct that given poultry. So that process of estimation is the one which we are saying is top-down estimation. Why? Because it just looks at the project on completion. Okay, it tries to find the aggregate or the total cost. Okay, and make estimates from that point. All right, so now we have looked at the first one. We can also look at the second category or process of estimation. So the second category or process of estimation is known as the bottom-up estimation. So this approach requires having a detailed work breakdown structure and a task list available. Then the cost of every item can be estimated using comparative methods or in some cases tables and suppliers quotations starting from the lowest level of the breakdown structure. The total project cost estimate is then made by adding the estimates for all the constituent parts. This is bottom-up estimating, the converse of top-down estimation. Alright, so from what they have explained here, what they are simply just saying is the bottom-up estimation is just the opposite of the top-bottom estimation. Under the bottom-up estimation, the first thing we do is we start with the small activities that you have listed in your work breakdown structure. And then apart from a work breakdown structure, you are supposed to have what is known as a task list, which is simply a list of all the tasks and activities that will be required in implementing or ensuring that the project that you want to implement is implemented. Then from there, you begin to make estimates, okay, cost estimates for each and every activity that you have listed down. And then once you make estimates of each and every activity, you can be able to now find the total cost estimate for your project by adding the estimates of each activity that you have estimated and also listed down. And this process is what is known as bottom-up estimation, and is simply just the converse or the opposite of top-down estimation. Alright, so the first stage in the bottom-up cost estimation process is to compile a complete list of every known item that is going to cost money. This can prove difficult, but any item left out of the cost estimate will result in an underestimate of the project as a whole. This can jeopardize planning and scheduling, and if not realized in time, lead to serious problems and red faces when time comes to hand the project over to the customer. And of course, if the project has been sold for fixed price, the additional work must be paid for not out of the budgeted project funds, but from the contractor's expected profits. Alright, so under the bottom up estimation, it is very cardinal and it is very important that we make sure we list all the activities, all the items that are going to be involved in the implementation of our given project. The reason being is that if we leave out even just a single item, our projection or our estimations might be underestimated. Okay, and once we make a budget that is falling short below what will be required when we begin to make our project, it will mean that we will run at a relatively less or loss. Okay, this might affect the project, as maybe let's say you will be handing it over to your customer. You will be required to make supplementary budget from the profits that you will make after handing over to your customer. So under this process of bottom-up estimation, just ensure that you are careful and each and every activity or item where money will be going is supposed to be listed and made accounted for. Alright, now level of details in project cost estimation. So some difficulty might be experienced in deciding how much detail to show in the task list. So okay, this one is simply just coming up uh, because of what we have just explained under the bottom up cost estimation. It is a very delicate process such that we are not supposed to miss any item or activity. As a result, it is very important that we pay particular uh, focus on the details, okay, on the details as we embark on this process of estimations. So some difficulties might be experienced in deciding how much detail to show in the task list. What is a task for this purpose? Consider the problem of estimating the total cost of a manufacturing project as part of the process for preparing a fixed price proposal. The cost estimate must be made before detailed design has taken place and therefore without the benefit of any production drawings. It will be obviously not possible to list all operations needed for each separate PC part. Okay, so here what you're simply just saying is when it comes to making of, or when it comes to details, it is very important that we pay a lot of attention, okay, to the details that will be required in terms of listing of activities and also items that will be involved in the implementation of our project. Failure to that, it might risk us running on a loss or making other losses. Alright, so for today's class, this is where we shall end. Then we shall continue tomorrow in our other class.